Supreme excellence consists in breaking the enemy's resistance without fighting. Just let that sink in for a second. This isn't some dusty old quote from ancient history. No, this is a brutal psychological truth that governs how power works, right here, right now. It's not about who's stronger, it's about who's smarter.
But here's the question you really need to ask yourself. What if you're the one whose resistance is being systematically broken day in and day out? In every meeting, in every negotiation, heck, even in your own relationships, and you don't even realize a battle is being waged for your mind?
These are Sun Tzu's unspoken rules of power, and this is where we expose the psychological truths that are operating just beneath the surface of everything you do. We're going to turn this ancient strategy into your modern-day advantage. Let's get into it.
Okay, rule number 1. You have to internalize this, really get it deep down. The battlefield is no longer physical. It's not out there somewhere. The most important territory to conquer is right between your ears. Perception is the battlefield.
You see, we're living in an age of what's called cognitive warfare. Your mind is the contested territory. Victory has nothing to do with physical force anymore. It's all about controlling the narrative, shaping what people believe, and steering their behavior, often without them having a clue that a game is even being played.
And make no mistake about it, your mind is the target. Every single ad you see, every negotiation you walk into, every political speech you hear, it's all a contest of influence. It's a calculated attempt to install a version of reality inside your head that serves someone else's agenda, not yours.
You know, in old-school warfare, generals would fight to seize the high ground for tactical advantage. Well, in psychological warfare, perception is the high ground. The person who controls the story, who frames the conversation, who gets to define what's real for everyone else, that's the person with the ultimate power. So this leaves you with a choice. And it's a binary one. There's no middle ground here. You either learn to shape reality, or you will be shaped by it. In this game, sitting back and doing nothing, that's surrender. You've already lost.
So, if you're going to navigate this new battlefield, you have to know the terrain. But this terrain isn't made of dirt and rocks. It's the human psyche itself. What you need is a psychological map.
This line right here, it's not just some famous proverb. It is the absolute cornerstone of strategy. It tells you that information, deep, unflinching psychological insight, is a weapon far more powerful than any army could ever be.
Just look at the difference here. The amateur only sees their own pieces on the board. They're totally focused on their own goals, their own strengths, and they're blinded by their own ambitions. The master, on the other hand, sees the entire board. They take the time to build a complete psychological map of every single player, and that includes themselves. They see the whole game.
And this is the map. And notice, it doesn't start with them, it starts with you. What are your blind spots? What triggers your ego? Then, and only then, you turn that lens outward. What are they terrified of losing? What's the unspoken motive driving them? These, right here, are the hidden levers of influence. Real power is knowing these levers in others and, maybe most importantly, in yourself.
This brings us to what might be Sun Tzu's most profound and honestly most misunderstood principle. The true height of skill isn't winning the fight. It's achieving your goals so perfectly that a fight is never even necessary.
Let that one really resonate with you. Winning 100 battles isn't a sign of mastery. It's proof that you failed 100 times. A direct fight is actually a failure of your intellect. It means you just weren't strategic enough to win before the battle ever got started.
So here's the hierarchy of attack. The master always operates at the highest, most abstract level. First, you attack their strategy. You make their plans fall apart before they can even start. If that doesn't work, you attack their alliances and isolate them. It's only when all those higher strategies have failed that you resort to direct, messy, costly conflict. That's the amateur's first move, but it's the master's very last resort.
This is exactly how power works in the real world. That business deal you heard about, it was won through superior preparation weeks before. That negotiation, it was won by the person who framed the entire conversation from the very first word. That argument was over the moment one person understood the other's psychology so well that resistance just crumbled. The outcome was secured long before anyone ever sat down at the table.
And that brings us to the final piece, Sun Tzu's most potent and definitely most misunderstood weapon, deception. But we're not talking about just telling lies. This is about deception as a highly sophisticated psychological instrument.
First things first, we need to be crystal clear about this.
Lying is the tool of an amateur. It's crude, it's fragile, and it almost always backfires. Strategic deception? Well, that's an art form on a completely different level.
See, strategic deception is the active management of perception. You're not just telling a lie. You are building an entire reality for your opponent to live in. You guide them towards a flawed conclusion, and you use their own cognitive biases, their arrogance, their impatience, their assumptions as the weapons you turn against them.
These are classic psychological exploits. You appear weak to feed their ego and make them overconfident. You seem inactive to trigger their impatience and force them to make a stupid move. You're not just lying. You're creating a story that their own brain is desperate to believe is true. You let their own flaws do all the heavy lifting for you.
And the ultimate goal of all this? It's simple. To bend your opponent's perception of reality until it lines up perfectly with your goals. You make your version of reality the world they operate in.
And now, you see the patterns. You'll see them in the news. You'll see them in your office. You'll see them in every social interaction. Once you see this architecture of influence, you can never, ever unsee it. And that puts you at a crossroads.
So the question becomes, what are you going to do? Are you going to remain a pawn, just getting moved around in games you don't even understand? Or are you going to wake up and start seeing reality for this strategic battlefield that it's always been?
The choice is yours. If you're ready to see the world as it really is, to understand these unspoken rules of power, then join the small fraction of people who are truly aware. Subscribe, like this explainer, and make sure you activate those notifications.
And finally, for those of you who are really paying attention, I want you to comment below with the most powerful psychological tactic you have ever personally witnessed. Let's see what you've really learned.